After a long hiatus, we are jumping back into the MCU. And it has been a long hiatus because while Deadpool and Wolverine is technically in the MCU, it doesn't really take place in the sacred timeline of it all. So, Captain America Brave New World, the 35th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is finally taking us back into the action. This is a direct follow-up to The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was the Disney Plus series that came out, which introduced us to Sam Wilson finally taking on the mantle as Captain America. However, what they don't tell you is that Brave New World is actually a secret sequel to The Incredible Hulk. It feels like if you have to watch any movie to understand what's going on in this one, it isn't, in fact, the Captain America movies. It's actually The Incredible Hulk. This movie finally ties up a whole bunch of loose ends that were set up in that movie, and so it is a very sneaky sequel to that movie. However, it must be said, it is a good welcome back into the MCU. This one is thrilling and action-packed, tense, and everything we enjoyed about these movies. It is not so much a superhero movie as it is a political thriller, which makes it all the better, but I think it is a great welcome back into the MCU.
Oh, I completely agree. I think I've said this out loud to several people that I was actually more excited for Captain America Brave New World as compared to Thunderbolts. And I think that's because the Thunderbolts trailer, which is very exciting and looks fun and funny and all that good stuff, is very much a summer blockbuster MCU movie. This, however, feels like it could be different. The second trailer, I think, the Who Will Cross the Line trailer, I think is the one that really got me excited because it felt like a political thriller, because it felt like a political intrigue film, because it felt like it was going to be more than just, let's watch Captain America fight the Red Hulk. And it is more than just, let's watch Captain America fight the Red Hulk.
Yeah.
This is so good.
So Malcolm Spellman wrote the series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He is also responsible and is given a writing credit and a story by credit for this one. And the one thing I liked about Malcolm Spellman and what he did with the series was he leaned into what it means to be Captain America in the present day. Not just the Black Captain America, although that was a big part of it, but I think the idea of Captain America in the present day and what it means to carry that mantle, that silly name, and how it works in a world that is incredibly cynical. And then you throw in the fact that Sam Wilson is Black in America. And he also addressed all of those issues as well. He kind of mined deep into comic book lore with Isaiah Bradley and all of that stuff. And I thought The Falcon and the Winter Soldier was probably one of the best Disney Plus series because it really dug deep into what it means to have that name America in your title.
Especially if you're Black in America.
I feel like this movie is a fantastic follow-up to that because it doesn't preach the same thing. He set up everything in the series, and this one carries that forward in a very natural way. So in this one, Sam isn't fighting to be recognized as Captain America. Almost everyone recognizes him as Cap, and they call him Cap. You can feel some underlying tension, but it's never spelt out. And I thought that was probably one of the strongest elements of the film because that's probably what it feels like to be Black in America anyway.
Yeah.
To your face, everyone's going to be nice, despite the underlying tension all around. And I felt that in this movie. And I thought that was a really interesting tension that they maintained from the series. Because throughout the movie, Sam has to prove himself. And a lot of the time, he keeps saying that to himself. He doesn't have any superpowers. He's not a billionaire. He didn't take the super soldier serum. He's just a regular guy who happens to have a shield and a pair of wings. And I think the movie leans into that in a very, very profound way. It's the first time we're seeing that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's the regular Joe that ends up being a superhero with nothing.
I have to admit, I didn't quite see the I won't say racial undertones lah. I didn't quite see that. I did clock that proving himself thing, and I felt like that was more him to himself. I see what you're saying, and I thought that was good. I love the fact that there was no attempt to try and bring people who didn't see the TV series up to speed. This is who Isaiah Bradley is, and Falcon goes, "What? The original Captain America from the 1960s? What the hell happened to you, man? You disappeared." And then Bradley goes, "Well, I was put in prison for 30 years and experimented on." And that was great. That was enough. Like, there was no long catch up to all of this. So now let's talk about the actual movie. I loved how the movie plays out. Yes, you say this is a secret sequel to The Incredible Hulk, and that's fantastic. But I love the Winter Soldier tone of this film. I love that there is as I said up top, that this is an espionage thing, that there is political intrigue here, that there is a plan on a plan on a plan. There's an onion unfurling in the story, and that it isn't just I need to stop this one big bad. I'm going to just end up punching him harder than he punches me.
And of course, that works given who Sam is, right?
And where he is.
And where
right?
he is as well.
Yeah, like the Avengers are no longer around. You see in the trailer, President Ross is asking him to put a new one together. And there's the baggage of the Sokovia agreement. And there's the baggage of what happened at Civil War. And whether or not you want something like the Avengers to be under the thumb of presidential power and all of that. I loved all of that.
I also loved how it leaned into everything we know about Sam from the very first time we meet him in The Winter Soldier. In that movie, wasn't he also a counselor in the army?
Yes.
He was,
yes, he
right?
was.
And I like how that role plays an important part in how this movie resolves itself. Because Sam has to do a combination of two things, right? He has to be the fighter, but he also has to be the diplomat. And he talks people down as much as he does beat people down. And I think that makes him a very interesting superhero and a very interesting Captain America. So I think in that sense, the way this movie plays out compared to The Winter Soldier is very different in that it is a spy thriller, but it's also very much a global political conspiracy diplomacy type thing. Like, it is one part the diplomat and one part Winter Soldier. Because there's all of this backroom stuff that is happening. And it was about halfway through the movie that I realized, actually, we haven't seen Captain America fly around punching people a lot in this movie. There was a lot of talking, a lot of negotiating, a lot of investigating. And for me, that really works because it just builds up the tension until two incredibly intense fight sequences towards the end of the film. But all of that is kind of earned as well because you've lived with these characters for a good hour and a half before any of that stuff happens.
It never feels like the punch up is the point.
Yes, exactly. It's also
Yeah.
very much a Ross movie as well because Thunderbolt Ross is a character that we've seen throughout the MCU, and yet there's very little that we know about him. I mean, his biggest part was probably in The Incredible Hulk, and even that was the caricature version of Thunderbolt Ross. He was the Hulk hunter.
Yeah.
However, in this one, I think we get to see another side of the character and how it runs in parallel with who Sam Wilson is, and also how Sam Wilson's unique set of skills comes into redeeming his character, as in Ross. Like, that full circle stuff was really good and very well written, I felt.
I was surprised at how much Thaddeus Ross is in this movie because he's in it a lot.
It is very much a two-hander in that sense between Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie, yeah.
You know what it is? It's not treating Thaddeus Ross as the villain. It's treating Thaddeus Ross as the flip side of Anthony Mackie's coin. So they're both wanting the same thing in some way, right? Security for the US and nations of the world coming together for adamantium. Oh yes, by the way, there's adamantium. And all of those things, except Sam Wilson's got one version of how that should be achieved, and Thaddeus Ross has got another version. Thaddeus Ross isn't a bad guy. Unlike, say, in Incredible Hulk, where he was very much, like you said, the Hulk hunter. He's the villain to Hulk, right? Whereas here, he's just the other guy. He is Sam Wilson's opponent in this battle of ideals. And I love that. I love that was the point of this.
Also, I have to say, adamantium makes for a very good MacGuffin. And it is a MacGuffin, right? In this one, it is this thing that everybody wants that causes global strife. However, being adamantium, it makes it a very useful MacGuffin, because if you've read the comics or you know anything about adamantium, you realize why it's important. And it's not just because, as Ross says at the beginning of the film, it is the most precious mineral. It is not controlled by an isolationist government like Wakanda, and it was found on this celestial thing that rose out of the water, right? I mean, sure, all of those things make for an interesting MacGuffin, but then if you're a comic book reader, you know Cap's shield eventually is a mixture of vibranium and adamantium. Wolverine's body is adamantium. It's an interesting MacGuffin because it pushes the narrative forward. You know it's got an important part to play in the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Eventually. Yeah, I also love the fact that we never actually saw it.
No, we only see like a rendering of it, right? Like a graphic.
Like a holographic image of it. Like we never actually see the adamantium or how they get adamantium or what it looks like in its nothing. We don't see anything, and I love that.
Yeah.
Even in the rendering, it says, I think it says like a graphic representation in its original, something like that. So we don't even know what it looks like, and I love that. I love that MacGuffin, that rabbit's foot, was used that way. And it wasn't even used in the Mission Impossible rabbit's foot sort of way, right? In that everybody wants to grab it. This is the point of conflict for everything. It is not the taking of the one item. It is the point of contention between several nations. And I like that. I will say, I think there will be people out there who will be disappointed with it because it isn't a wham bam babooms kind of movie. Like, I think a lot of people will come out to watch it first weekend, but I don't know about multiple rewatches.
Funny you say that. I really want to watch it again.
I really want to watch it again.
Yeah. For me, Brave New World feels like all of its moments, the action moments, the tension moments, all of it was earned within this movie itself. And I think that's why I enjoyed it. It didn't feel like other movies had to play into this. Just going back to what I was saying earlier about Sam Wilson feeling that he wasn't yet Captain America or that he still had to earn it. I think that was a thread that was playing through this entire movie. Like, there is a conversation which he has later in the film, and he talks about how Steve made a mistake in giving him the shield. And it's clear that he still has those doubts, despite him being the only person that is the best at doing his job. And I think my reading of the kind of racial subtext came from that moment where it feels like he's always got to prove himself being a person of color in America. Irrespective of how respected he is, or whether he's sitting in the front row in an event at the White House, or whether everyone is calling him Cap and everyone wants to take his photo, it doesn't matter, right? And I think that insecurity was played out really well. I'm not sure how much this movie is going to mean to us sitting all the way out here in Malaysia, but I have a feeling it's going to have a profound impact on Black people in America. Even more so than the TV series. I think this movie does a lot to push that message, especially now in this second era of Donald Trump. I have a feeling these conversations are going to get highlighted and this movie is coming out at a very interesting time. My only nitpick with the film is, in comparison to something like The Winter Soldier, I think Julius Onah is not as deft with the action sequences as the Russo brothers were. Like, all of the action sequences in that movie were memorable in The Winter Soldier. Whether it was that initial car chase against Bucky or the elevator fight, like, all of those action sequences were memorable. In this one, the action sequences aren't bad. They're perfectly serviceable. And I think Sam gets off some very cool stunts with that shield, but they're not Legolas swinging off a horsela. It's not something you're going to remember until the end of time.
It's not the Bucky knife flip.
It's not the Bucky knife flip, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's my only one nitpick. I think Julius Onah has made some serviceable action sequences, but nothing particularly phenomenal or memorable.
I also will say, I'm not sure I'm a fan of the Captain America suit. Only because it makes him look really bulky.
Yeah, I think it's because of the wing stuff as well.
No, I mean, it's not just the wing stuff in the back, but it's just like his chest and his shoulders. I think also because Anthony Mackie is already pretty big, so it adds a lot more bulk onto him. So he doesn't look like he moves as well when he's just doing non-fighting stuff.
So this is approaching the end of Phase 5 of the MCU. I don't know if people are still keeping track of that. I think Thunderbolts marks the end of Phase 5, and then Fantastic Four marks the beginning of Phase 6. We seem to be slowly moving away from the multiverse storyline. I'm still not sure how they're going to wrap up all of that stuff. There are tons of loose ends on that front.
Yeah.
So hopefully they find a way to kind of tie it all back together in Doomsday and Secret Wars. I don't know. But here's hoping. But in the meantime, I'm hoping Thunderbolts is just as entertaining. And I've got all my hopes pinned on Fantastic Four because they're one of my favorite characters in the comic book universe. And yeah, I think this is a great welcome back. I'm really happy this thing is out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Captain America Brave New World is now showing in Malaysian cinemas. Check it out. We don't think you'll be disappointed. Let us know what you think once you have. We're on Instagram on GogglerMY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.